Hello, this is Panic Consulting's ArcGIS workshop. I'm Frank Conkling, and with this workshop, what we're going to do is we're going to explore parcel fabric maintenance workflows. Now, most of the training and most of the time you've gone and converted into the parcel fabric, Esri does a great job of talking about the workflows and it's involved in most of the training, but I want to just add something extra to it. Some of the things that we find we do is very helpful when we go and do maintenance for any of our clients. So first thing I want to do is always is point out the QR code to the lower right corner. That will take you to our website, panicconsulting.com, show you who we are, what we do, why we do it, and how we do it. In addition, I want to go and point out that Panic Consulting is an ESRI Silver business partner, and we have the parcel management specialty designation together with the release ready and state and local designations. So please, um, let's start. So we're going to talk again about maintenance workflows, and we've got a couple of them. These are standard. There's only about 5 or 6 of them. And with that, if you can go and conquer these and really know how to do these, you can do almost anything inside the parcel fabric. So let's start with just merging. Now, merging is when you actually have a what's often called a combination or some sort of merging of title between two entities. And the workflow is fairly simple. It's create a record, select the parcels to be merged, select the parcel tool, attribute them. But what we're going to do is we're going to add some additional things on here. We're going to talk about performing quality checks, and then also we're going to talk about reconstructing boundaries on here. So let's go ahead and do this. This is a parcel fabric. And as we said, the first step in the merge is to actually go and create a, a record in here. And I'm just going to call this the merge record. And we can put today's date on here. All right. And we can create the record. Once we create the record again, we can see the record as an active record here. So the first process in here, the first step is to actually go and select the parcels to be merged. In this case, I'm going to hold down and click and select both of these parcels, which we're going to merge together into one parcel. And I'm going to select the merge on here. The merge tool allows and has a couple of things in here. One, if we go and merge it to an existing parcel, it's going to go and mark it and bring it in here. But we're going to go to a new parcel, in which case we can either go and select one of the existing parcels using the attribution and let it create a new geometry for that. And this is very important. We want to make sure that we take the original parcels and mark them historic. And then the question is whether we want a template. Now, this template option is used either when we're going and we want to create a new parcel, but we don't want to use either of these sets of attributes. We want to create a new one, or we want to go and merge it into a different layer. But in this case, we're going to say, no, we just want to use one of these, and we're going to select 10 here, and we're going to create new parcels in here, one new parcel, and it will go and actually take and give us the two historic parcels. The line that's between that is marked historic now, which is very important. And this is one of the really nice, easy things about the parcel fabric. But here's where we differ a little. And this is what we consider our best practices for doing any of these maintenance. Once you're done with this initial maintenance workflow, you then want to go and do some quality checks. For example, one of the easiest things to do in the parcel fabric, once you've got it in there, is to go over to the quality tab and go to the highlight and tell it, in this case, we're going to tell it to just highlight the elements between all the visible layers and show us the gaps with a red line and the overlaps with a green line, and look for gaps or overlaps that are at least 6 feet or less than 6 feet on here. And you'll see there is nothing in here that goes and does it. This takes the place of running topology against your data just to look to see whether you have a gaps or overlaps. Now, with the maintenance, or excuse me, with the merge maintenance, this is kind of useless. You really don't need that, but I just want to get you into that routine that should be a step that you always go and do after you do any of these maintenance routines. The next one we do is something that um, we highly recommend. You'll note in here we've got labels for our points. And one of the things that we recommend is that you take, once you've gone and run through and identified any gaps or overlaps, go ahead and select the parcels in this area and run through what's commonly called the reconstruct boundaries. Now, if you watch here, what happens, it's going to go and take these two lines and reconstruct them into a one single line with a label on it. Same way here, here, and then it's going to go and make a change over here. So let's go ahead and do that. And you can see how quickly that goes and works. In this case, it went and modified it here and here. This actually looks like there's a slight variation in here, so that it really didn't impact that much. But this reconstruct boundaries is a good way to go and ensure that you have the latest information on here. I'm looking, I think I might have my lot lines. No. Okay. All right. So that actually takes up the merge. Merge is actually the simplest thing you do. But again, we want to go and make sure that you understand that once you do this initial workflow, you want to make sure that you perform the quality checks and sort of update the data, check it for gaps, overlaps, then go and reconstruct the boundaries on it. So let's go to the next one. This one's a little bit more interesting. This is when you get a meets and bounds description and you're not quite sure where this parcel is. So it's the traditional one in which you go and create a record. You then input the boundary using the traverse tool, close the boundary, create a seed, build the parcel, and then you align it. See how it's going to match up with everything else. Once you've got it all aligned, then you can go and clip it, attribute it to make sure that the attribution is correct, and then finally go and add this additional step, which we just went over, quality checks, and also do the reconstruct boundary. So let's go ahead and move it to a different parcel and say that now what we're going to do is we're going to go and build something in which we're not quite sure what or where this legal description is. Now I'm going to go and create this on the fly. And let's start by creating the record. Split one. All right. And again, we can just go in. Here, you can see this record attribution is fairly simple on this with this client. So there we have it. And now we're going to go to the actual traverse tool. And with the traverse tool, we're going to go and start inputting our parcel lines. Now, again, we're going to go and identify our start point. Let's call it here. And the legal description, it actually is tempting to go and cut something out of this parcel here. So rather than starting with a boundary line, which is what this is, I'm actually going to start with a connection line. A connection line actually goes and serves to go and identify where something's located without necessarily being on the boundary. So in this case, I'm going to go and input this as being due east for 375 feet. All right. Now, once I've got that, then I want to go and do a new and switch it over to my parcel lines. So now I've identified where my point of beginning is, and I want to go and continue again for due east, and I'm going to go 300 feet on here. Now from this, I'm going to go in and do sort of just a standard rectangle. So I'm going to go 90 degrees to my previous one, and I'm going to go 300 feet. I'm going to go 90 degrees, 300 feet. I'm going to go 90 degrees and 300 feet here. And note, it comes back, it automatically closes for me. And tells me what my misclosure ratio is, the number of square feet inside of there, and gives me any adjustments. But if I don't, one of the things on here is that this 90 degrees isn't really what we've got in here. And it really doesn't match the existing data. There's a couple ways that we can modify this. Um, it depends again upon how intense you want to go and map. We could use the ground to grid to go and do this and have it develop a direction offset, or identify the difference in the basis of bearings between our assumed bearing on the deed versus the bearings and the projection system that we're using for the rest of the data. In this case, I'm going to use my alignment to go and fix this. So I'm not going to go and apply any sort of ground to grid in here. So I've gone and I've finished my traverse. I'm satisfied with these lines. I can then go and tell it to go ahead and finish that up, create my seed, which is my seed right here, and I can go and build it. When I build the polygon, I've then gone and created this polygon for me, and it's now one parcel on top of another one. So if I go and select this here, and I go to my attributes, I will find there's the original parcel, the parent parcel. Here's the new parcel that's getting cut. I really just want to go and select just that parcel that I just created, and I want to perform an align. Again, to go back to here, I've gone created the record, input the boundary using traverse, closed it, made sure it closed, created the seed, build the parcel, and now I'm going to go and align it. So we use the Align Parcels tool to do that. And what the Align Parcels tool will do is it will go and identify what we have selected. Now it only has to be the parcel. It doesn't have to be the lines or anything. It automatically will go and use those. But we can go and use this parcel. We're going to go and align this, and we're going to go and move it so it's in alignment with the existing data that's around there. We're going to go to the tolerance area. This is actually the buffer here that's being displayed, and develop how big are we going to go and make that. In this case, I just want to make sure that it includes anything around there. I also want to go and identify here how big I want to do this. Now there's some discussion about how big I want to do this.
Hello.
And if I
Just was talking.
go and make it to match this here, it will automatically generate my preview here. I'm going to tell it to go and show. I can tell it, go ahead and show me the preview. And as I zoom in, it will show me where it's going to move this over on here and where it's going to move this over to make sure it's coincident. Now, a couple of idiosyncrasies about this. In this case, I had nothing controlling this, and it did go and move it over slightly, but you'll note there was a slight break. So I'm going to tweak that when I'm done. And then the other component here is that the Align Parcels tool still does not go and move or align the connection lines. We're also going to go and fix that as we go. So I'm happy with the way it lined up with all of this and where it moved my parcel over so it's coincident, and I'm going to go and say, go ahead and align that up. I'm not done aligning though, because I said there's two things here that still didn't align correctly. Well, in this case, it actually did go and move my endpoint of my connection line, so I don't have to do anything on that. But I can recognize that there's a bend here, and I want to go and make sure that that is the same bearing going all the way down. So what I'm going to do is underneath the Align Parcels tool is the Align Features tool. This Align Features tool will allow me to go and draw a new alignment. And I can go and right click and say parallel to this alignment to make sure that it extends whatever this is here. And if I zoom in, it will allow me to go and put it here. All right, so now when I do the alignment, it's going to go and take and move this point so it's coincident. Here, it's going to realign that bearing and make sure the bearing is correct. To go and verify, We've not made any change at all. Let's go and see what our actual lines are here. It's not made any change on the actual attribution of those. It's kept them exactly as they were, but it's just realigned them for us so that we can have it geometrically go and show us where that alignment is. So I'm going to go back and select now my parcel, and I'm going to go and clip this parcel. Now with the clip, there's actually a couple different ways that we can do this. If we look at the very bottom of the clip pane, it says clip all editable features. Now, if you're aware of what you're doing here, this is actually a very efficient way of doing things. But if you don't pay attention, it might get you into trouble. Over in my table of contents, I have my lot layers turned on and my subdivision layers. I don't see anything here, so I think I'm fine with it. Just to make sure, I'm going to turn off my lot and my subdivisions. I don't have my section lines on, so it's not going to clip it out of those other layers. With this clip all editable features, if I have these other layers turned on, there's a chance, a possibility that it may actually go and clip out of that. So let me go and say, go ahead and clip this parcel out of the underlying components here. All right, it then clipped it. If you'll note up here, it actually went and made an edit here, change this dimension. So let's go back and show you there the dimension was 408. Once we do the clip, the dimension now becomes 108.22 on here. So remember I said with sort of the best practices now, I clipped it, I can then go and attribute it if I want, but then I want to perform these quality checks just to make sure. And again, these are comparable to doing topology on here, but within the parcel fabric, it's faster and easier to do. So the first one is going to be, I'm going to highlight my gaps and overlaps to see if there's any gaps and overlaps in this area. And in fact, my alignment was good. I have no overlaps here. I'm fine with that. So I can clear that out. I can then go and do what I was suggesting and select the parcels in this area. And once I have them selected, I can do the reconstruct boundaries. Reconstruct boundaries will now go and rebuild the information on my labels and telling me what these individual labels are, how much I have left here that wasn't included in the original one. This is something that was not dimensioned in the original clip. This was something that was clipped out. So it tells me what those are. Question I often have is, why do I have brackets around that? If I actually go to one of these lines here, I'm going to go and select those lines. This is my 300 line, and that 300 line I actually entered when I was entering my traverse. So it notes that it's been entered. But this 210 is from geometry, or it's actually inverse. It's calculated what those values are. And so it's telling me, using this symbology for the labeling, you can't quite rely upon that and be sure that that's what it's supposed to be. If it turns out that that is actually what the distance is on here on the deed, I could actually go in here and say, well, actually, this one is reflective of my legal description, and I can change it back to my COGO type of being entered, and it will change my label on there. All right, what's the next workflow that we have? Again, it's gone through splitting something by meets and bounds. And this is sort of the traditional one where you get a legal description, you're not quite sure where it is, go and run out the traverse, figure out where it is and how it fits in, then go and build a parcel, align it up, clip it, attribute it, check for gaps and overlaps, and recalculate your labels so it reflects the changes that have occurred. Second option. This one is a little bit interesting in that this is a description where it might have a parcel in here, and then this description basically says all that part of this parcel lying south of this line through here. And that's what this option number 2 is actually for, that very, or case when you've got a legal description that says thence going and all that parcel lying north or south of a certain line. So we're going to go and rebuild that now and show you how to go and do that type of a split on a parcel. Let's go in here to this parcel here, and we're going to go and do it. Again, the first thing to do is create a record on here. This is split 2 on here and our date. All right. So with this one, there's a couple ways of doing it. If we know what the line is and we're sure of it, we could actually go in here and just do a split on this parcel. Since we have an active record, it's going to go and make sure that everything that's missing once we split it is going to be created for us. So I can do a split, and if this was another layer, I could trace that layer, or I'm just going to go and do it an interactive split, and I'm going to draw a line and tell it to go ahead and split those 2 lines. All right, and when it created these 2 parcels for me, automatically calculated the acreages for me. And actually, if I look and I go and say, show me what's part of this record, it will show me, in fact, that I have 2 new points that it created. It created a point here and created a point here. It has a new line. This is the line between them. That line does not have any value on it at the moment, no COGO value. I just drew it in interactively. Here's the existing lines that were part of that record. And here's my 2 parcels. And again, I can go in and update the COGO on one of these, or excuse me, update the attributes on one of them and have it reflect what's gone on there. But again, if we look at here, we've gone and created, split it, attributed. We want to perform those quality control tasks. So we can unselect that, go to quality, and tell it to find our gaps and overlaps. And again, in this case, because this was a simple split, there are none, so we don't have to worry about it. Then I'm going to go and take and select these parcels in this area, and I'm going to tell it to go and do a reconstruct boundary on here. And again, watch what happens with the labels, what it's actually telling me. And again, we have new symbology for the labels in that previously when it automatically went and just inversed where there was no dimension, it gave us this brackets around here. But because there was a dimension here at one time and we split that dimension, it's now giving us a plus or minus, meaning it's a derived or it's been computed as far as the dimension. This one, there was no dimension on here, and it's telling us whether or not these are things which are new values or whether there was something in there originally. Again, really like this workflow. You're not quite done until you actually finish everything on here and reflect what changes have occurred. All right. So that's our option number 2. There's another way of doing this, and that we can actually go and do a copy lines to on here. Let's go and look at that. If I go over here, and I'm going to use the same record on this, I'm going to take this and use the copy lines. Copy lines to is a way for us to go and use the existing geometry here, but build something else out of that existing geometry. So I'm going to do a copy lines to, make it be the same layer or the same type of parcel. Note this was already part of my record. And now I have, here's my lines and my seed for my new parcel. I can go and take this line and I can divide it if that's what I'm supposed to do. I'll be defined, and I want to divide it in 2. And then I can take and create a new line for my connection between here. Maybe I go from here to here with it. And I'm done with that. Again, if I look at here, it's copy lines, divide and input the new lines, create the seeds, build attribute. So I have an existing seed. That seed, by the way, is located on the left side of that line that I just drew. It doesn't matter how far over it is. It will create completely new seeds for me as I'm going through. And I can tell it, go ahead and build these. And it does the same thing. Now note, when I went and divided that line, it automatically recalculated the COGO on there, but it didn't do anything else with the other surroundings. So I'm still going to go through that same process. Go to my quality control, highlight any gaps and overlaps in case there are any. Again, there are none because of the process I used. And then I'm going to go and select these parcels. Again, just a reminder, watch the labels, watch what happens with the labels. As I reconstruct the boundaries for here, I can see that now it's a much more efficient, a much better way of looking at the labels and what they actually tell me about these parcels as I'm going through. By the way, what happened here? Why didn't it go and do that? If I selected that and they did a reconstruct parcels, it will then go in and give me some other information behind here. All right, so that's sort of the third, or excuse me, the third option, which is going and building this, and where that line is described as being like one side or the other of a line. That's for this workflow here. The next workflow we're going to go through is a split by aliquot description. And again, similar workflow. Create the record, select the parcel to be split, select the divide tool. And again, we're selecting the parcel polygon that's going to get split. Select the divide tool, input the criteria, select the edge that's going to be used for the division, and tell it to divide, do the parcels, and then perform our same QA, QC checks on these. So let's go up here and start, and we'll divide this one. In this case, we will go and create a new record in here and call this aliquot split 1. And again, we can put the date here and create this new record. All right, once we've done that, it is now select the parcel to be split and then select the divide tool. The divide tool will tell us the types of divisions that we can do with a polygon as the component here. So let's use a summary in which we're going to go and take the south 250 feet of this parcel. And that's going to be the actual split that we're going to be doing. The description says the south 250 feet. So we're going to go and you do an equal width division on this polygon. We're going to go and identify that 250 feet is the amount of split that we're going to use for the width. And then we're going to select the side of the polygon that we're going to use. And if I click on this side, it's going to go and preview and show me how far 250 feet is. It's going to show me there. Now with newer versions of ArcGIS Pro, you also see this other option. This option says split the parcel lines that are associated with this new intersection here. So it will go and split this line here, and it will split this line here and update those as we want. And so let's go ahead and do a split on there. And it'll go and split those parcels, split those labels for me, create those new parcels for me, and I can go in here and just attribute and say, this is my new parcel. In this case, I want it to go to there, and there's my new parcels and attribution on here. We're done with this record. However, I want to make sure that again, we do the QA/QC. So again, introducing that, go and look for splits and open any gaps or overlaps. And again, most of these workflows that we've done, we've used existing geometry, so we don't have to worry about it. But again, we want to make sure that we use this as an opportunity to check our data and just sort of sweep it and make sure it's clean as we're moving forward. Now I'm going to go and select these surrounding parcels again. And I'm going to go over to my modify and tell it, go ahead and reconstruct the boundaries on here. And you see where the labels now will go and automatically identify and correct themselves as they're going along. Again, this is one of those things that we just found. It really makes a difference in the mapping and what you're seeing on here. Again, especially telling you that this was 250 feet, but in fact, it actually computed the actual distance along here was only 249. This was 319. Now, why that seems strange because this should be 250. Perhaps it was because this original Kogo distance was less, and it actually did a proration in that it said there is a proration that goes on here, so that is the resulting proration that occurred. All right, so Aliquot descriptions within the parcel fabric, this workflow is actually very, very nice, as long as it's a straight boundary. All right, as long as there's not any other curves on here. So what happens? Well, let's go back here. What happens if, in fact, we have a different size or a different type of boundary? Let's say here that we wanted to go and split and have 100 feet off of the south boundary here. Now that's not a straight line. So how are we going to go and do this? I can use the same record if I want, and I'm going to go and do a split on here. Now, again, if I go and do a split, excuse me, if I do a divide on this tool, let's go back here to here. Let's do divide and try to go and do equal distance. And we said that's 150 feet. And we tell it here, well, that's going to go straight across there. It's not going to go and catch this here. By the way, we can also go and draw a line here, but that line is still only straight. So that's not going to work here. Instead, in this type of an instance, one in which we are going to be slightly different than it's not a straight line. It's some sort of bend in the line, or there's a curve in the line or something. It's a slightly different workflow that we want to go and take. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to go and do a split. So again, we still have an active record. We're going to do a split, but we're going to get a little tricky this time. This time, we're going to, instead of drawing the line, and we could draw the line, we could actually go and draw a separate line, or we could go and scale it. I'm going to go and do a trace. All right. And when I do a trace, I'm just going to click here, and I'm going to go and right click and I'm going to say trace options. And I want to go and trace this, and I'm going to do 150 feet offset from wherever I do my trace. So here, I'm looking, it's south of here. So I want to go and do a tab key and have it go and start tracing. And if you look up here, it's actually tracing it all the way across to here. Now I can get it to trace to here, and then it doesn't quite end there. So what do I do? How do I make that match? Well, with the trace tool, I can actually, since I ended my trace there, I can right click on this, excuse me. I can then go here and I can say right click parallel with that line and just extend it through until that's where I want to go and do the split. I started with a offset, with a trace offset of 150 feet, traced it as much as I could. I ended the trace and went to drawing with a straight line and then extended it according to here, and I did my split. All right. So I was able to go and do an adequate split along a non-straight line by using some of the tools that I have and making sure that I understood again how to go and use my tools. This is comparable to when you're becoming a carpenter and you get your first set of tools and you try to figure out how do I use that tool? And initially, fundamentally, you just kind of understand what some of those tools do. And that's a rough carpenter. But once you become more skilled in what you're doing, you become more of a finished carpenter in which you learn how to combine tools together, how to go and use just one portion of one tool for one edit or one modification and then move on. And you can see here where you can do some pretty extensive modifications. We're going to do the same. We're going to do our looks for gaps and overlaps, none. We're going to clear that out. Then we're going to go and select these parcels, and we're going to go and do our reconstruct on here. All right. All right. So that's splitting by a straight boundary. Actually, that's also by the curved or irregular. And that's what I actually went and just demonstrated. Inputting that line, I was parallel or I created that split, but it was a split command rather than a divide command that I used. And I still did all my other checks on here. So by the way, that's the basic workflows. Those are the tools that we have inside the parcel fabric to do the standard types of maintenance. And then it becomes, well, how do we use those? How do we become more than just a rough carpenter? How do we become and learn how to build a house, to extend that metaphor? That's when we start combining tools together, saying, okay, what happens when we want to do a subdivision? So let's go and do a subdivision. And let's assume that there's a subdivision that's going in right here. First thing we do is we always go and create a record, subdivision. All right. And our date. Do that. And then let's turn on our sublayer just for this. And let's go ahead and build this. So I'm going to go and build it using a traverse. All right. And I'm going to use subdivision lines. I'm going to go and just draw an imaginary one here. And I'm going to start here. And I'm going to say, all right, I want to go 0 degrees north for 250 feet. I'm then going to go 90 degrees to that for 785 or 875 feet. All right. I'm going to go 90 degrees to that. I'm purposely going to make it so it doesn't quite fit. 90 degrees to that for 250 feet. And then I'm going to go 90 degrees to that and returning back 875 feet. Gives me my closure. Just to make sure you don't get confused with that, those are the lines that I just drew on here to show you that they were drawing those lines. And if you look, here's my subdivision line on here. Let's go ahead and build that. I did my traverse. Let's create the seed for it. And it creates the seed according to the types of line that you drew. Let's build it. All right. And now I've built it. Now let's go ahead and align it. And just sort of, we did the build on the subdivision. Now we're going to go and align it. Now it's at this point that I have to make a decision. Am I going to go and align my parcel boundary, excuse me, my subdivision boundary to match my parcels, or am I going to pull my parcels in to match my subdivision? In this case, I'm going to go and say, let's pull the parcel boundary in to match the subdivision. So let's click on Align my parcels. And in this case, I'm going to say toggle to the surrounding parcels and make sure that they all align. And in this case, I can use my same 10-foot settings and tell it to go ahead and generate to show me what this is going to look like. And when I look at this, it's going to tell me that this parcel is going to be pulled straight and be coincident with this. All right. So I can go ahead and click Align. and we'll go in and pull it in. I can then go and do that. By the way, the align did not move my point on here. Let's go and build this again. Actually, let's go and build not just that record, but let's build the extent, because that way it'll pick up these points in here and build them. And let's see if there's something underneath here. Why is there still a point here? I'm going to go and merge that point to clean it up. There's a point here, there's a point here. I'm going to merge them together and see what else is connected. Ah, there is something connected. There's a roadway connected or something connected here. Maybe a historic parcel. I'm going to tell merge that in place to one. Excuse me, wrong way. Tell it to merge it into two to correct that up. So it's a little bit of cleanup here together. All right. So I now have created this subdivision. I cleaned it up underneath here. I'm now going to go and select my subdivision only. All right. Oh, why won't it do that? I'm still on merge parcel points. Once I get off of that, now I can go and select my polygons again and tell it I don't want that. I actually want, should probably go and make sure I make those selectable. Let's do that for my lots also. Let's do that now. I'm going to select just that subdivision and I'm going to build lots out of this. So my next step is, by the way, once I've done that, attribute them, go in here, I say, let's go and build the lots. Let's create the record again, or reuse the same one. And then I'm going to select that newly created parcel. I'm going to select copy lines to, and then I'm going to turn off my subdivision layer. Using divide and traverse tools, I'm going to create my lot lines, my seeds, and then I'm going to move from forward on that. So in this case, I'm going to go and say, okay, let's go ahead and do that. Here's that. Let's do copy lines too. And this only shows me the layers that I have turned on that to be editable. Let's cancel out of here, cancel this. Let's turn on our lot layers. And now do copy lines to our lot layer. So let's make these lots now. All right. And then if you'll note in my workflows, I mentioned on here, you want to go and turn off the subdivision layer because that's part of your active record and you can get confused. For example, if I go and do a selection here, I'm going to have my lot lines and my subdivision lines on here. I don't want that. I'm going to turn off so that that's not shown anymore because it's only showing me my active record. Now I'm going to go and do a couple things. I'm going to go and take this line. I'm going to parallel it. Oh, maybe do it a different way. I'll go and I'll take 50 feet off of here, 50 feet off of here, and create a road in here. All right. So let's go to divide. And here I'm going to go and divide this by a single distance to 50 feet off of the start line here. Boom. Go over here. I'll do 50 feet, but this time I'll do it off of the end line here. All right. Get out of divide. I'm then going to go and create a new line. This is a lot line that I'm creating now. Here to here. Excuse me. Let's do that again. Here to here. All right. Make sure it's done. All right. Now I'm going to go and do one more thing. I'm going to go in here and take these two lines and I'm going to divide them into 6 equal parts. All right, this was just dividing 6 equal parts. Now, the reason why I did that is just to show you that with certain elements inside of your tools, inside the divide tool, for example, I can select multiple lines and divide them into equal parts. I cannot divide them into distances. I can do them into equal parts though, and to percentages. So in this case, I'm going to divide them all into equal parts, go and do that, and then I'll get off of my divide. And then I'll go in and I'll create these lot lines here to here. And I'm going to stop that and then go here to here. Stop that here to here. If I had known what that, again, this is just purely on the fly, going in and generating this and designing it as I'm doing it. If I had a bearing and distance, I could have done that bearing and distance. There's a lot of little tricks. Part of that finished carpentry. There's a lot of little tricks to help you with this. Um, Make sure you replicate those and make sure they're marked correctly. But in this case, I'm just going to show you how to go and draw those lines in here. I'm going to say create the seeds. When it creates the seeds, note this seed is actually located in this lot. So it's not creating an extra seed for me, but it is going and creating all the seeds for all those other lots. And I can say build my lots for me here. All right, and I can go in here and I can, now that I have my lots all built, I have all my lots here, I can use another tool called sequential numbering tool. The sequential numbering tool, I can choose my layer and tell it I want to go and do my lot polygons. I'm going to attribute the lot line, and I'm going to start with a value of 1, increment by 1, and all I have to do is draw the line between those, and we'll go and automatically label those. In this case, maybe I want to go and take this and label that as, take my lot and label that as a road. Yeah, on my lots, I don't have that. So I could just say this is a road tract on here. All right. So I've gone and created all of those in here for me. All right. So I have now, if I turn on my subdivision, with a couple of simple tools, I've created my subdivision. I've taken that subdivision, divided it into various lots. I've then gone and created those lots and numbered them. I still have one parcel underneath. I haven't split up that parcel, maybe because they haven't started selling them yet. If I wanted to, I could take that parcel, mark it historic, and create new ones for the lots that are on here. Let's show how to do that. So I now have my one parcel, only create that parcel, and we have a tool that says mark this historic. And now marked that historic on here. So that lot is now marked historic. To go and show you, I have a historic lot there now. Now let's go ahead and take these lots, all right, and only those lots, only select those lots on here, and let's copy those, or let's duplicate them onto our parcel layer. So we'll now go and duplicate those onto our parcel layer and creating new parcels having exactly that geometry. Go ahead and do that. We have these new parcels. We can attribute them using our sequential numbering. However, just to show you, I don't need to go and show you that again. I'm just going to say, okay, let's talk about what we added to these workflows. We want to go and do quality control. So let's go and immediately look at gaps and overlaps. And here's our dashed line around here. We've created this. We have no gaps and overlaps in here, so we can clear that out. What about our reconstruct boundaries? All right, let's go up here, reconstruct boundaries. We go in here and tell it to reconstruct the boundaries for us. By the way, we zoomed out too far for the labels. There we go. And we can see where we have our labels reconstructed and rebuilt for us as we're going forward. All right. So again, just wanted to go and show you, we didn't cover too much new ground here, other than starting to show you some of the nuances of how you can take the basic workflows, combine them together, and using that same metaphor of a new carpenter learning their tools, and then as they get more advanced, learning how to put them together and build a whole house, and then eventually becoming a finished carpenter. And you can do very interesting things on there once you get to learn your tools. But always remember, you want to be performing your quality checks for your gaps and overlaps and doing reconstruct boundaries. All right. Any questions? If not, I'm going to go and say thank you for being here and watching this, and we'll talk to you with the next one.